heads in trouble the minute they stole from Cad.
Good night, fucker.
One day, a wanderer searches the forest for food. He manages to catch prey and intends to share it with his loyal dog. However, upon returning, he finds his pet lying motionless on the ground. He attempts to wake the dog, but it does not respond. Realizing the animal is no longer breathing, he lifts its body, only for it to split apart, spraying blood across his face. Soon after, the narrative shifts to a group of college students embarking on a mountain camping trip to celebrate the end of their semester. Among them are two couples, Jeff and Marcy, and Paul and Karen, accompanied by their friend Bert, known for his carefree, stoner lifestyle. On their way, they stop at a convenience store. Paul greets a young boy, only to be bitten unexpectedly. The store owner intervenes, restraining the child and warning Paul to wash his hands in the river to avoid tetanus. Meanwhile, the rest of the group shops for supplies. The clerk learns they are renting a cabin for a week and cautions them not to venture too deep into the woods due to dangerous wildlife. As they leave, Bert is caught stealing a snack bar, but the owner forgives him, allowing them to continue their journey. At the cabin, the group settles in. Jeff and Marcy quickly retreat to the bedroom, but their intimacy is interrupted when Paul accidentally barges in, and Bert is caught spying. Paul apologizes, and Bert is chased away. The group then begins their vacation activities. Bert hunts squirrels with his BB gun, Jeff and Marcy indulge in their relationship, while Paul and Karen explore the woods, with Karen photographing their surroundings. Near the lake, Paul awkwardly attempts to confess his feelings to Karen but fails. Meanwhile, Bert, smoking by the campfire, hears a noise and investigates with his BB gun. Mistaking the sound for a squirrel, he fires into a ditch, only to discover he has shot a man, the same wanderer, now appearing skinned alive. The man pleads for help, but Bert recoils. When the wanderer reaches for him, Bert fires a warning shot, causing the man to fall into the foul ditch. Bert flees the scene. Back at the cabin, Jeff and Marcy scold Bert for neglecting the fire, nearly causing a blaze. Nervous, Bert claims he was only hunting squirrels. Later, the group gathers around the campfire, where Paul entertains them with a horror story, though his laughter makes them dismiss it as nonsense. Suddenly, a man with a dog appears, introducing himself as a solo camper. He asks to join them, and the group welcomes him, even inviting him to spend more time with them. He accepts, offering marijuana before returning to his tent as rain begins to fall. That night, a knock at the cabin door reveals the wanderer once again, now in worse condition, his skin rotting. He recognizes Bert and exposes him to the group, revealing that Bert shot him and abandoned him. The group condemns Bert's selfishness, but Bert insists the man carries a contagious disease. Soon after, the wanderer attempts to steal their car. With no phone signal to call for help, the group confronts him. During the struggle, the wanderer vomits blood across the vehicle. Paul strikes him with a bat, though the wanderer evades, causing further damage to the car. Bert also misses his shot, worsening the situation. The wanderer lunges toward the women, but Paul sets him ablaze with a torch, forcing him to flee into the woods. Exhausted, the group decides to rest and seek help the next day. The following morning, Jeff and Bert search for a mechanic, while Marcy ventures out for assistance. Meanwhile, the wanderer's corpse is seen floating in the river, leaking a strange substance. At the cabin, Karen confesses guilt over burning the man, and Paul comforts her. Jeff and Bert eventually reach a barn, where they encounter a woman enraged by her diseased pigs. She explains she cannot sell or consume them, smearing herself with their blood as she rants. Disgusted, the men ask about a mechanic. She directs them to make a call, but upon hearing their story, she recognizes the wanderer, unsettling them. Fearing suspicion, they leave, feeling like fugitives. Across the lake, Marcy discovers an empty house and calls for help, but Jeff arrives, lying about their encounter with the woman. Back at the cabin, Paul is visited by a sheriff nicknamed Sheriff Mustache, who questions the previous night's events. Paul explains that the wanderer carried a disease and attempted to harm the women, forcing them to defend themselves. He shows the sheriff the bloodied car, but Sheriff Mustache remains skeptical, promising to report the matter. Upon seeing Karen, the sheriff behaves inappropriately, hinting at sexy parties in the woods. Karen, plagued by nightmares of infection, sleeps through the day. Later, Paul and Bert clean the car, discussing the sheriff's plan to bring a tow truck. They remain wary of his unsettling behavior toward Karen. Their conversation is interrupted when the solo camper's dog approaches aggressively, only to be driven away by Marcy with Bert's BB gun. Paul questions why the camper allowed his dog to roam freely. Inside, Jeff warns the group that the solo camper himself may be infected. Jeff begins to suspect that the mysterious illness is spreading throughout the area. He believes the wanderer they encountered may have been responsible for transmitting it. Concerned, Jeff urges the group to leave immediately. Karen, however, insists they should report the situation to the authorities, fearing they could otherwise be considered suspects. Soon after, Karen becomes nauseous and retires early to bed. Bert proposes repairing the car enough to drive into town for help. With plans set for the following day, Jeff and Bert work on the vehicle while the others rest inside the cabin. Later that night, Paul lies beside Karen and attempts to initiate intimacy. As he does, he notices an unusual discharge, realizing she has already been infected. Alarmed, he disinfects his hands and discovers traces of infected blood in the bathroom. The group confirms Karen's condition and isolates her in a shed to prevent further contamination. Recognizing this as the first infection among them, they begin examining one another for signs of illness. Paul then searches nearby cabins for assistance, but his efforts prove futile. At one cabin, he encounters a woman preparing herself for her partner. Mistakenly perceived as a voyeur, Paul is threatened by the man, who brandishes a shotgun. Unable to explain himself, Paul retreats back to his group. During a later discussion, the group hears the camper's dog attempting to break into Karen's shed. They manage to drive it away with Bert's BB gun. The next morning, Paul checks on Karen and finds her condition worsening. Meanwhile, Bert, alone in the car, begins vomiting blood but conceals his illness from the others. Paul and Marcy attempt to move Karen into the car to seek treatment, but she suddenly vomits blood, horrifying Jeff and Bert. Bert suggests going into town alone to bring back help. Observing Bert's deteriorating state, Paul and Jeff suspect he is infected. Bert quickly drives off, abandoning the group in hopes of saving himself. Back at the cabin, Jeff, fearful of infection, packs beer and leaves as well, leaving only Paul and Marcy to care for Karen. Saddened, Marcy seeks comfort from Paul, and their closeness leads to intimacy. However, Paul inadvertently transfers traces of Karen's blood onto Marcy's back. Afterward, he disinfects himself, while Marcy notices the bloody handprints. Meanwhile, Bert arrives at the convenience store seeking help. The store owner, aware of the spreading disease, warns him to keep his distance. Suddenly, the boy bites Bert, possibly infecting himself. Witnessing this, the store owner resolves to hunt Bert and his companions to prevent further contagion. Back at the cabin, Marcy discovers her back deteriorating in the bath, her skin peeling away. Panicked, she hears gunshots and runs outside, only to be chased and mauled by the dog. At the same time, Paul searches for Jeff and stumbles upon the reservoir, where he finds the wanderer's burnt corpse. Falling into the water, he realizes the infection is spreading through the supply, but it is already too late, many have consumed it. He rushes back to the cabin with this knowledge. Meanwhile, Bert is pursued by armed locals. After his car breaks down, he flees on foot. Returning to the cabin, Paul discovers Marcy's remains and Karen being attacked by the dog. He kills the animal and, upon seeing Karen's face rotting to the bone, delivers a mercy shot. Bert arrives injured, warning that the locals are hunting them. Soon after, the locals storm the cabin. Bert sacrifices himself as a distraction, and Paul seizes the opportunity to fight back. He kills several attackers, including the store owner, before searching for Jeff. Instead, he finds the solo camper, who has been devoured by creatures in a cave. Realizing Jeff is gone, Paul seeks help from Sheriff Mustache, who has been ordered to kill him. Paul defends himself and escapes, eventually hitchhiking with a truck driver. He collapses and awakens in a hospital, where staff deem his condition untreatable and plan to dispose of him. Unable to speak clearly, Paul fails to warn them about the contaminated water supply. Sheriff Mustache later discards him in a creek. The following day, Jeff returns to the cabin and discovers his friends dead. Believing himself the sole survivor, he rejoices, only to be shot by Sheriff Mustache, who burns his body with the others. The film concludes with townspeople unknowingly drinking from the infected water supply, ensuring the disease will spread further. This is the narration from Mystery Horror Recap Channel. Stay safe, and enjoy your day.